Chapter 4 is the next entry in the Poppy franchise, and while not much is known about the game yet, thanks to some newly discovered hidden messages in the book, new teaser images you probably missed, and many more hidden details I've uncovered, I believe today I have solved a big chunk of the Chapter 4 story, and possibly even the secrets in the upcoming ARG, but here's what I mean. So last month, the Poppy devs announced the start of the Chapter 4 ARG, something done in past chapters and games where they release little teasers to upcoming projects early through secrets via computer systems, CCTVs, or even mock Twitter accounts. And while the ARG hasn't even started yet, I've already found some really big secrets for it from all the way back in May with the release of the Poppy Playtime orientation notebook. As while for the most part, the book is pretty upfront from what it reveals page by page. I've already talked about it in other videos. If we go over to the innovation page, we can see a sticky note is placed over some lines of text that clearly spell out some kind of message. Now, I've spent hours trying to figure out what this text says. I've tried to heat up the page with candles and lights to reveal any hidden text, and even figured out the font the book used and tried to decipher the spacing of the messages that way. None of it worked. But if we look at the top of the sticky note here, we can slightly decipher one little phrase of the message, the omniscia sinus, which is actually Latin for the words God of omniscience. And this actually matters a ton because the word omniscience generally refers to an all-seeing entity like a god as mentioned in the phrase, something we have actually already seen in past ARGs like in Chapter 3, which had the phrase omniscient eye revealed, and in Project Playtime where we discover this mysterious image of an eye inside of a poppy flower, likely being the omniscient all-seeing eye in question, often referred to as an eye of providence, a form of symbolism used in both cult and religious contexts, referring to a higher all-knowing power represented with an eye-like shape, most well known in places like the Illuminati or the back of a dollar bill. Yet despite us receiving this eye image all the way back in 2022, even being seen on the suits of the scientists in Project, and on top of all of the Toys' experiment containers, we still have no idea what this icon is for. However, we clearly know it means something since they are still teasing it to this day. This is definitely meant to be a hint to the upcoming ARG, and later down the road, we likely are going to uncover the full message hiding under this sticky note, and likely we will finally get to learn more about this mysterious omniscient eye and the potential cult around it. But until then, for now, I think I have a pretty good idea on what it might mean. As likely mentioned, clearly this symbol is meant to represent some kind of a godlike figure, but most interestingly, it's shaped like a poppy flower. And the well-established reason for this was because we already know in 1950, Elliot Ludwig created Poppy, the perfect experiment. However, 40 years later in the 1990s, when the Bigger Bodies Initiative was started by Harley Sawyer, and Elliot had presumably died, judged from this 1991 document here confirming he had passed away using his name in the past tense, it seems like the other scientists in the factory had no idea how Poppy was made in any way. The only clue they had was the rat experiment log seen on his desk in Chapter 2, where we could see he was testing dumping rats in Poppy gel to try and recreate life in the same way Poppy did. And while Harley eventually created all of the bigger bodies using biologists and literally harvesting bodies from the play care attendees in a guerrilla forceful way, all of the bigger bodies are notably flawed. Huggy can't speak, Catnap was aggressive and would sometimes try to escape, or sometimes they would just lose all sentience like the Braun VHS tape from last year. They could never create a character as perfect as Poppy despite studying her for so long in her case, and could never figure out what Elliot did. So judged from this symbol, it seems like they believed the poppy flower had supernatural all-seeing properties, since after all, it was what created the only perfect experiment of them all. So the symbols on top of all these cells and the employees wearing them around is likely the development of a staff-based cult or religion around the flower that had given them this perfect gift of a patient zero that they could study to create all future bigger bodies, hence why they placed the image above all of the containment boxes as a sort of shrine. And while this is a theory that I've had for a while, I've never been able to connect all of the clues to the upcoming Chapter 4 in any way, and I didn't think any of this would matter for Chapter 4. That is until super recently. As if you didn't know, just a couple of weeks ago, the developers released a summer drawing celebrating the season showing Huggy sitting by the beach. Doesn't seem like there's really too much to say about this, sure, but interestingly enough, the devs have been consistently constantly teasing that there are supposedly secrets hiding inside of this image on Twitter and Discord, seemingly suggesting this image might be hiding some chapter 4 clues. And looking at the photo, there are two things in particular that stand out to me as odd. The super out of place pyramid sandcastle on the left, along with the magazines at the bottom. Now, first starting with the pyramid design, this is super out of place and it doesn't look like a sand castle, more like a sand pyramid with a weird compound. So I definitely believe this has some kind of a purpose for the upcoming chapter. And remembering all of the religious Poppy context we've seen before, I think this pyramid actually explains a lot. Since in many religions or even cult-like contexts, the triangular or pyramid shape holds a lot of significance in a number of different ways. For instance, the most famous pyramid example, the Egyptian pyramids, are often believed to be burial places for the dead, originally built as mastabas to protect the bodies from looters and wildlife, but were then theorized to be reinvented as pyramids to connect the bodies to the infinite afterlife above. And this exact sentiment is something that could be applied to Poppy as well, since the big draw of the monsters and the cult around them is actually that they're immortal. The toys, as long as they are sustained, cannot die from natural causes or age for that matter, and this is something higher up employees like Stella Graber and Harley Sawyer have fantasized about in the past, wanting to live forever.
Sometimes though, I really wish I could go back to being a kid, but your body just gets older and older and then you die. Human bodies just can't stay young forever.
Mortality is the curse of the weak, a fire that incinerates the flesh. I strive to snuff that flame. I am simply a man who will escape from incineration and embrace the infinite.
So with all of this religious imagery we've seen in previous ARGs and in the build up to chapter 4 here, I wonder if perhaps this pyramid could be a real physical location in the factory for the next chapter. And more specifically, it could be the place where the bodies were being created or stored, just like what was done with the Egyptians. This would also make sense because this building teased here is compounded off, obviously to keep sneaky employees out from discovering these secrets. And no, it's definitely not a stretch to be making connections with this Poppy religion and real life religions. They've done it themselves in the chapter 3 ARG, where they gave us cryptic words like Nephilim, which are described in the Bible as mysterious giants that once lurked among humans, clearly meant to be symbolism for the bigger body. So this is definitely not a stretch and actually makes perfect sense in my opinion. Even if I'm wrong, I'm 99% sure at the very least this pyramid has some kind of relevance to chapter 4. Now for the magazines. Here things get a little more confusing. See, mysteriously, the artist who made this image posted a couple clues on Twitter to some of these secrets hiding inside of it. First with an umbrella emoji, which could be referencing the umbrella on the top right, or the one in Huggy's drink here, which actually has the same Poppy design as the eye from before, which is more evidence that it will matter. But more importantly, she also put a magazine emoji, seemingly confirming to us the magazine matters in some way, but it's really hard for me to find any connections. The hour one looks like it's a reference to Time magazine, but obviously is called Hour because of the Hour of Joy, and I think that's all that means. But this next one here is a little more interesting. It says, newest hit in the theaters, the 5 components, a must watch. Now the reference in the magazine is relatively obvious, as there's a movie released in the 90s called The Fifth Element, which this magazine is clearly parodying in its design. But what could this reference mean for Poppy Playtime if it's hiding some kind of secret? Well, a lot of people have been pointing out specifically the date this movie was created, 1997. What if the secret hiding in the magazines is the date of the movie that it's trying to parody, and somehow something relating to the factory and chapter 4 happened in the year 1997? I found this interesting because while 100% of Poppy lore at this point takes place before the factory closed in August 1995, obviously, up until this point, we don't know anything about what happened after the Hour of Joy, leading to us re-entering the factory in 2005, despite us likely being over halfway done with the game. So if this theory is correct, chapter 4 could finally give us more insight on what happened after 1995, leading up to us re-entering the factory to see all of the toys have gone savage. Especially since it's already been established that chapter 4 is going to be super focused on the prototype, with Poppy even telling us our goal was just to try and kill him. And maybe we will finally get to learn in this chapter how he took control over all of the toys. Or maybe 1997, 2 years after the Hour of Joy, could be the year where after using all of the employees they killed as food, the supply finally ran out, and they had to resort to eating each other under the cult of the prototype, allowing him to take power. It's a super interesting theory, and all of the dots, in my opinion, connect really well. Now, obviously, it's hard to say that I think this theory is 100% correct, because I am assuming a couple factors, like that the magazine date and the pyramid are what the devs meant by the secrets hiding inside of here, but there are still a ton of interesting pieces here, so let me know if you agree and what your theories are for chapter 4. And while we wait for that release, check out this video where I interviewed the Poppy CEO about the upcoming games.